Hello everybody, and welcome back to Certified Collectibles. This is another episode of First Appearance of the Week. This is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. We'll be giving you all the first appearance in your comic shops today. Now this week we got a pretty long video for you guys. I think we have 7 first appearances, 6 honorable mentions, so 13 titles to go through. Definitely some books in there worth picking up for your collection. So let's go ahead and get started for the first appearance of the week, ending August 16th, 2024. First up from DC Comics. From the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives #2. This features a possible first appearance of Mother Grimm and her Army of Lost Children as referenced in the solicitation of issue number 3. Now I believe issue number 1 of the series was also on the list for a possible first appearance of Mother Grimm, so you definitely want to get confirmation that this here does include the first full appearance of Mother Grimm and her Army of Lost Children before you consider picking this one up for your collection. But you know, like we always mention with the DC Comics, it really depends on what DC does with these characters they're introducing in comics as to how important they're going to be in the future. You know, DC doesn't have the cinematic power that Marvel Disney has. You know, Marvel can bring a lot of these new characters they're introducing in comics onto the screen, get a lot more eyes on them, drive a lot more attention to those characters. You know, DC doesn't really have that, so they definitely rely on just word of mouth and creating characters that really resonate with collectors and fans. So that being said, if this is actually the full first appearance of Mother Grimm and her Army of Lost Children, this one here may be worth picking up the spec on. It still will be speculative, you know, but make sure you do get confirmation, because if this is not the first full appearance of this character, this book is not going to go anywhere. If this is the first full appearance, grab this here for a spec if you can. If you can't, put in your B-list and take a look at it later on. Next up from Marvel Comics, Spider Society #1. This features the first appearance of new Spider personas. Now, like we just mentioned a moment ago, it's typically worth picking up the first appearance of new characters in Marvel titles. You know, Marvel Disney is a cinematic juggernaut. They can bring a lot of these new characters to the screen, get a lot more collectors interested in them. And this story here also falls within the Spider-Man universe, the Spider-Man franchise. And like we always mention to you guys, the Spider-Man franchise, probably the most popular and most heavily collected franchises for Marvel Comics. So anytime they introduce a new character into that franchise, these are books you definitely want to pick up. Add to that this here is also the premiere issue of this title series. This is one we do think you should pick up for your collection. Go ahead and grab this one. Next up from Marvel Comics, Venom #36. This features the first cover appearance of Old Man Venom, Dylan Brock. Now this here is the first cover appearance of Old Man Venom, not the first full appearance of Old Man Venom. Definitely keep that in mind if you choose to pick this one up. It's typically the first full appearance that gets the most attention later on, but people do still collect the first cover appearances, and they do trade at a premium later on. But you know, like I said, the first full appearance of characters in comics, especially in story, those are the ones that collectors later on definitely want to have in their collection. But that being said though, this is definitely worth picking up for a spec at least. You know, for the cover price, I don't think you can really go wrong in this one here. Venom is part of the Spider-Man universe still, and the fact that this here features the first cover appearance of Old Man Venom, probably still worth having in your collection. So grab this in here for a spec if you can. If you can't, put in your B-list and take a look at it later on. Next up from Marvel Comics, Venom War Spider-Man #1. This features the first appearance of Arachneot, created by Null. Now once again, this is the first appearance of a new character in a Spider-Man title. These are definitely worth having in your collection. You know, if this character goes big, you're in this for $3 or $4. If it goes nowhere, you're out $3 or $4. In our opinion, the risk is worth the reward on this. You know, not all these new Spider-Man characters are going to be big in the future, but you know, unfortunately, we don't really know which ones are going to be big, so it's typically worth picking up all of them if you can. You know, for the cover price, it's probably worth adding to your collection. You don't want to chase these down later on for a lot more money. So go ahead and grab this one here for your collection. Next up from Marvel Comics, Werewolf by Night Red Band #1. This features the first appearance of Elder Dorgana. Now typically it's worth picking up the first appearance of new characters in Marvel titles. Like we mentioned, Marvel Disney is still churning out a ton of media for the small screen and big screen. That being said though, this here is the first appearance of this Elder Dorgana character. We really don't know anything about this particular character at this point, and this character is being introduced in this Werewolf by Night Red Band series, so we really don't know how important this character is going to be in the future. But you know, like we just mentioned, probably worth picking up for a spec at the cover price, because if this goes big, you definitely want to be in it for the cover price for $3 or $4. You don't want to chase this down years later for a lot more money. So this one here is going to be a little more speculative than some of the other titles we mentioned, but you know, the risk may be worth the reward on this. So grab this one here for a spec if you can. If you can't, put in your B-list and take a look at it later on. Next up from Marvel Comics, X Factor #1. This features the first appearance of Cameo, a shapeshifter. Also the first cameo appearance of Zyber, a hero with electronic-based powers. And also the first cameo appearance of Granny Smite, a mutant whose intention on every mission is to die. You know, we mentioned this here in previous videos. Now that Marvel has the rights to X-Men again, you could definitely expect a lot more X-Men content to hit the screen, whether small screen or big screen. So these comic books here, where they're introducing new characters, these are books you definitely want to pick up for your collection. You really don't know what Marvel has planned for this series, or for this franchise, and you really don't know where they're going to be pulling characters for these TV shows, streaming series, or feature films. So you definitely don't want to miss out on these for $3 or $4. This one here has the first full appearance, and also a first few cameo appearances. So this one here, in our opinion, is definitely worth picking up. Go ahead and grab this one. And finally, from Marvel Comics, X-Men number 2. This features the first appearance of Ben Liu, a mutant. Now, like we just mentioned, Marvel has the rights to X-Men again, so you can definitely expect some X-Men TV shows, streaming series, and feature films. And the fact that this here is the X-Men title series, and this features the first appearance of a new mutant, this is one, in our opinion, that's definitely worth picking up. Like we always say, you don't want to chase these down years later for a lot more money. If Marvel decides to make this particular mutant a big deal, you don't want to miss out on this one. This is one we do think you should pick up for your collection. Go ahead and grab this one. And now for the honorable mentions. From Mad Cave, Defenders of the Earth number 1. Now we put this one here on the list because this here is the premiere issue of this new title series from Mad Cave. Mad Cave hasn't had a lot of their titles picked up an option in the past for small screen and big screen projects, but that's no indication of the future. If this story gets picked up, hits a screen, people are going to race back and try to find this premiere issue. And these small press and indie publishers, when they start a new series, these premiere issues definitely have a smaller print run than the bigger publishers. They're also under-distributed, undersold, and under-collected when they come out. So years later, when people chase these books down, there's not a lot of them on the market. So this here definitely has a few drivers going for it. But once again, this is definitely going to be speculative, because you are specking on this getting option picked up, getting in front of a lot more eyes, getting a lot more collectors interested in this title series. In our opinion, this here is a great spec bet. So grab this one here for a spec if you can. If you can't, put in your B-list and take a look at it later on. Next up from Dark Horse, Gilt Frame number 1. A classic whodunit murder mystery that spans the globe from Paris to Hawaii to Montenegro with an unlikely murder-solving duo. Now, Dark Horse has had a lot of their titles picked up an option in the past for small screen and big screen projects, and this one here sounds like it can lend itself very well to the screen. These globe-trotting murder mysteries, these are definitely great fodder for feature films. And like I mentioned, Dark Horse has had a lot of their titles picked up in the past. So this one here, in our opinion, has great potential to be picked up an option. So this one here is another great spec bet. Grab this for a spec if you can. If you can't, put in your B-list, but definitely keep an eye on this one. And next up from Dynamite, Johnny Quest number 1. This is the premiere issue of this new title series from Dynamite. Dynamite has been bringing back a lot of these 80s, 90s titles. They did this with Thundercats, Powerpuff Girls, Space Ghost, and now Johnny Quest. These are definitely going to be nostalgia plays. They're definitely feeding on nostalgia from people that grew up in the 80s and 90s with these cartoon series. That being said, though, this here is the premiere issue of this series, and this is probably going to do very well. The Thundercats, the Powerpuff Girls, Space Ghost, all those premiere issues did very well. Like I said, these are nostalgia plays, and there are a lot of people that grew up in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of these titles are going to appear to that demographic. This here is definitely going to be a little more speculative, because you are specking on people actually caring about this particular series in the future. In 5-10 years from now, are collectors really going to care about this particular Johnny Quest issue? We really won't know. If this series goes into the future for 5-10 years, people are definitely going to want the first issue of this particular series. But if this just comes out for a year or two and dies out, who's to say? So this one here is definitely going to be a little more speculative. Probably worth picking up anyway, though, for the cover price. You definitely don't want to chase this later on for a lot more money. So this one here, in our opinion, is definitely worth picking up for your collection. Go ahead and grab this one. Next up from Dark Horse, Myths number 1. A postal ship crashes upon a mysterious landmass between the Bright Un and Dark Fold, where two siblings embark on an adventure that will challenge family bonds. Now, Dark Horse has a lot of their titles picked up an option in the past for small screen and big screen projects, and this story here sounds like it lends itself very well to the screen. Once again, this here is going to be speculative, because you are specking on this title getting picked up an option, getting a lot more eyes on this particular series, and getting people to race back and try to find the premiere issue. So this one here will definitely be speculative, but in our opinion, this is a good spec bet. Grab this for a spec if you can. If you can't, put it in your B-list and take a look at it later on. Next up from Boom Comics, SIR number 1, Sir number 1. Avery will need to throw herself into the violent but captivating world of the motorcycle jousting fight club known as the Seismic Ironclash Roulette to be reunited with her girlfriend. Now, Boom Comics has a lot of their titles picked up an option in the past, and this story here sounds very cool, sounds like it lends itself very well to the screen. And these books don't actually have to make it to the screen. Just being option alone definitely gets a lot more eyes on them, definitely makes them a big deal, drives the price up in the secondary market. So you definitely don't want to wait for that. You want to get in on the ground floor and get these at the cover price. This here will be speculative, because you are specking on this getting option, get a lot more eyes on this title, getting collectors to race back to find this particular issue. But this here sounds like a great spec in our opinion, so grab this here for a spec if you can. If you can't, put in your B-list, but keep an eye on this one. And finally from IDW, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Nightwatcher number 1. The identity of Nightwatcher is revealed in this issue. Now, we always recommend picking up the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series if there's a first appearance of a new character, or new weapons, or new costumes, or any identity reveals. You know, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise, probably just as popular now as it was back in the 90s when it first came out. So we definitely recommend picking those up for your collection. Like I said, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles still going strong. So go ahead and grab this one here for your collection. So there you have the 13 titles that we have for you guys this week. There's a lot of titles in there, but there's definitely some books worth picking up for your collection. So please feel free to drop some comments in the comment section below. Thumbs up if you like this video. And as always, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for joining us here at Certified Collectibles, and we'll see you again next time.